From a safety who left a player paralyzed to a linebacker with over $4 million worth of fines. Here are the dirtiest NFL players of all time. First up, we have future Hall of Famer Steve Smith, because in 2002, with his teammate Anthony Bright, during training camp that season, the two receivers got into a fight, and it ended with Smith breaking Bright's orbital bone. Ouch. And if you don't know, the orbital bone is the bony cup that surrounds your eye. So that doesn't sound fun. But Smith wasn't dirty at all compared to number 9, Richard Sherman. Because Sherman wasn't just dirty on the field, but he was dirty off the field as well. His toxic choice of language even had reporters afraid to talk to him. Just ask Skip Bayless. Okay, maybe Skip Bayless won't admit it after being roasted by Sherman during a 2013 episode of First Take, yet Skip Bayless isn't anywhere near as scared of Sherman as former 49ers receiver Michael Crabtree is. Because during a heated battle between the Seahawks and the 49ers in the 2013 NFC title game, Sherman shut down Crabtree in the game's closing moments. As if a heartbreaking playoff loss wasn't enough, Sherman wouldn't let Crabtree forget about it. Following the game in an interview, sheesh. Crabtree, I don't know what you said, but you clearly awoke the beast. But he got off easy, because that wasn't bad at all compared to one player who did something so dirty, he almost made his teammate take his life. But at number 8, we have safety Roy Williams, because back in the early 2000s, horse collar tackles were legal. In fact, Williams became notorious for using them, including when he broke Terrell Owens' leg one season. That hurts. As it turns out, Williams utilized this tackling technique so much that he injured not one, but 3 players during the 2014 NFL season through horse collar tackles. Uncoincidentally, this was also the last year horse collar tackles were allowed. So, third time's the charm, right? And speaking of players who took cheap shots, Terrell Suggs at number 7 on this list also has his fair share of cheap shots. Because over the years, Suggs developed a strong disliking for the Steelers. As a division rival, Suggs knew the best way to beat the Steelers was without Ben Roethlisberger quarterbacking them. With this being said, T-Sizzle earned a bad reputation by attacking Roethlisberger's knees. Suggs wanted to win at all costs, and his main goal was to break Roethlisberger's knees. Just chill, man. And Suggs' teammates weren't much better because of Ray Lewis. Unlike the rest of the players in this video, Lewis was involved in a murder case back in 2001, which automatically enters him among the NFL's dirtiest players to some. However, what puts him over the edge are his dirty hits throughout his career. Specifically, hits from the 2010 season, where Lewis had to pay over 2 separate fines of $25,000. And to make matters worse, Lewis was already 35 at this point. What more do you have to prove still? But the players get dirtier and dirtier, because Rodney Harrison always played as if he had a chip on his shoulder. And my man was voted as the league's dirtiest player in both 2004 and 2006. Hold up, why are we recognizing the league's dirtiest player again? Regardless of the reason, Harrison clearly proved his dirtiness time and time again. This includes in 2002, where Harrison was suspended for a head-to-head hit on Jerry Rice.
What was the one that was absolutely worth it?
Oh, Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice did that slant, and I got a chance to hit him. And I tell you, Dan, I would have spent $500,000 on that just to get a chance to knock his freaking head off.
Ironically, this also marked Harrison's last season with the Chargers. 6 years later, when Harrison retired, he had accumulated over $200,000 worth of fines throughout his career. I mean, that's no small chunk of change if you ask me. Ultimately, Harrison gained his negative reputation because of helmet-to-helmet hits, something he has in common with former Raiders safety Jack Tatum. And with him only being 5'10" and 200 pounds, Tatum had to be creative and take advantage of the NFL rulebook during his playing days. But one of his hits in particular propelled him to spot number 4. Because in a Raiders preseason game against the Patriots in 1978, Tatum made one of the hardest hits in NFL history against opposing receiver Darryl Stingley. This hit was so brutal that it left Stingley paralyzed from the chest down.
The intended receiver is Darryl Stingley. The man he ran into was Jack Tatum, and Stingley was down.
How horrific. It's no wonder the helmet-to-helmet hit is now illegal. Following Tatum on the list is the dirtiest defensive lineman of all time, Richie Incognito. Believe me, earning this title is not easy. But when you did what Incognito did in 2008, it's not a surprise that he's gained such a bad boy reputation. Because during this season, in a game against the Redskins, Incognito committed an infraction on 3 different occasions. The first infraction was a personal foul for getting into an altercation with an official, while the second infractions stemmed from a chop block and a face mask penalty. Wrong move, dude. Committing 3 infractions in the same game is a pretty dirty move, but not quite as bad as how he treated his Dolphins teammate Jonathan Martin in 2012 and 2013, because according to Martin, Incognito continually harassed him and sent Martin some pretty concerning texts to the point where he dealt with anxiety and depression before leaving the team. That's some messed up stuff. Turns out, Incognito was dirty on and off the field. Yet, it's hard to argue that he was dirtier than the Buccaneers defensive lineman Ndamukong Suh. If you ask me, Suh is on a different level than the rest of these players so far. Not many can compete with Suh when it comes to on-the-field fights or cheap shots after the play, because one of these incidents took place in a 2014 playoff game against the Packers when Suh was on the Lions. Because Suh sacked Aaron Rodgers, but decided to take things a step further after the play. With Rodgers on the ground, Suh attempted to injure Rodgers in the hopes of a playoff victory by stepping on his leg. My man took things way too far. That's crossing the line. Similarly, 313-pound Suh stepped on the Texans quarterback Matt Schaub's crotch in 2012. This man is trying to stop people from having kids. Come on, man. Someone needs to teach Suh the golden rule. On a similar note, Vontaze Burfict also needs to learn the golden rule because he is even dirtier than Suh. I'm talking about this person who is only known for one thing: being a jerk on the football field. Burfict's dirtiness isn't debatable either, as Burfict has been fined $4.2 million. What the hell? How is that even possible? As hard as that is to believe, it's more believable if you've watched Burfict on the field yourself. Seemingly, year after year, Burfict was making headlines for all the wrong reasons. However, his most notable headline won a playoff game in over 25 years. Come on, Burfict. This action, along with many others, makes Burfict one of the dirtiest players in NFL history. But you know what's even dirtier? You not clicking the video on the screen. So don't do me dirty.